What's this say? Atomic Sciences by Redacted. Oh, shit.
Whoa, that door opening is awesome.
Oh, that's crazy.
Oh, that glass is really trippy. You're right. Whoa.
Welcome to the Atomic Sciences exhibit. For the extended info on different pieces, please right-click on the papers next to them. And remember, look, but don't touch. Okay.
What are the marks on the ground here?
All of the electricity in this facility of Argonne National Laboratory is atomic power. Oh, what's it say? This door, while not an exact replica due to the contest restraints, closely resembles the door of the RTNS-2 at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. What the?
Oh, perfect.
Oh,
Oh.
oh, I'm so glad that actually killed me.
Ah, oh fuck! Where the hell am I?
I can tip you.
No, it's okay. I'm in
Ah,
here.
yeah.
Uh,
What does this actually show?
you guys are getting ahead of yourself. We gotta get the info.
I also
I
need to
can't
do
see
it
shit.
once. I just don't close it again.
All right, what the hell does this say?
Ah, okay. Sandstone.
This door, while not an exact replica due to contest restraints, closely resembles the door of the RTNS-2 at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Built in 1978, it was the world's heaviest hinged door, which was 8 feet thick, nearly 12 feet wide, and weighed 97,000 pounds or 44,000 kilograms. A special bearing in the hinge allowed a single person to open or close the concrete-filled door, which was used to shield the rotating target neutron source, the world's most intense source of continuous fusion neutrons. Scientists from around the world used it to study the properties of metals and other materials that could be used deep inside fusion power plants envisioned for the next century. This door has no locking mechanism. It was not designed to keep people out, only to keep deadly radiation from escaping. Oh, yeah, that's neat. Doc, did you fall out?
I love this
I guess
diagram
we should
here.
get over with the demon core because that's all you guys keep clicking on. Before you rest the infamous Demon Core, a pit of plutonium-239 nestled between two half-spheres of beryllium. The 14-pound, 6.2 kilogram sphere of plutonium was originally the core of the third nuclear bomb meant to be dropped on Japan in 1945. After Japan surrendered, the core was kept in Los Alamos for experimentation. On August 21st, 1945, physicist Harry Dallahan, or Dalian, dropped a brick of neutron reflective tungsten carbide onto the core while performing criticality experiments. The brick caused too many neutrons to be reflected back into the core, resulting in the core going supercritical and kicking off a fission chain reaction. Dalian quickly removed the brick, but not without receiving a failed dose of radiation. He died in hospital 25 days later from acute radiation poisoning. Smoking cigarettes while doing nuclear fission experiments. I guess that sounds correct for that era. The red marks you see on the floor. Wait, nope, that's too much. The more famous incident involved Louis Slotin and 7 other scientists at Los Alamos Laboratory on May 21st, 1946. The beryllium half spheres and another neutron reflector were placed around the core and meant to be separated by a gap to prevent too many neutrons from being reflected back into the core and causing it to go supercritical. Standard procedure for this was to use shims to keep them from closing entirely, but Slotin typically ignored this when performing the experiment and used a screwdriver to separate the halves, ignoring many warnings from other scientists that it would be his demise. When Slotin's hand slipped, the halves closed and caused the core to release a bright flash of blue light. Slotin managed to knock the top of half to the floor, but it was too late. He had received 1,000 rad of neutron and 144 of gamma radiation in less than half a second. He would die less than 9 days later. His body shielded many of the other scientists in the room from receiving a higher dose. The red marks on the floor of this exhibit mark the approximate positions of everyone in the room when this second Demon Core incident took place. The red X marks the only member to directly die from the incident. The values marked here are true, but the distance in Minecraft units has been doubled to accurately represent the scale. If a marked measurement says 8 feet, the distance on the floor is actually about 16 feet. Okay. Good God.
All right.
And there's a pile of bricks. Yes. God damn.
There's
Okay.
a lot to read.
Chicago Pile 1, CP1, was the world's first artificial nuclear reactor. On the 2nd of December 1942, the first human-made self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction was initiated in CP1 during an experiment led by Enrico Fermi. The secret development of the reactor was the first major technical achievement for the Manhattan Project, the Allied effort to create nuclear weapons during World War II. Developed by the Metallurgical Laboratory at the University of Chicago, CP1 was built under the west viewing stands of the original Stagg Field. Although the project's civilian and military leaders had misgivings about the possibility of a disastrous runaway reaction, they trusted Fermi's safety calculations and decided they could carry out the experiment in a densely populated area. Fermi described the reactor as a crude pile of black bricks and of wooden timbers. The reactor contained 45,000 ultra-pure graphite blocks weighing 360 short tons, or 330 long tons, and was fueled by 5.4 short tons, or 0.9 long tons of uranium, metal, and 45 short tons, 41, metric tons, of uranium oxide. Unlike most subsequent nuclear reactors, it had no radiation shielding or cooling system as it was operated at a very low power, about half a watt. Okay. Oh, I missed this bit. The world's first nuclear reactor. God damn.
Hello.
Where the... Not separated either. 1.7 billion years ago, in what is now Gabon, Africa, an underground vein of uranium ore became the world's only known natural nuclear reactor. The ore vein was enriched with enough uranium-235 to spontaneously undergo a stable chain reaction moderated by groundwater. Reactions occurred here over the course of several 100,000 years, and the only life on Earth at this time were single-celled aquatic organisms. This was first discovered in 1972 in Oklo, Gabon, by researchers from the French Commissariat à l'Énergie, if that's how you pronounce that, Atomique, CEA, when they found that the ore in the area contained only 0.717% uranium-235 versus the 0.720% that exists basically everywhere else. Right-click on the numbered circles to learn more about regions in this graphic. Nice cape, Kira. Where's those wings? Nuclear reactor zones. Sandstone. New uranium ore. Granite. Hero grew wings from radiation poisoning. Ah!
I'm sorry. I had to click it.
Don't teach. Oh, fuck. What's this? Fuel energy density.
No. I love how this
Science
bar
tip.
just extends to.
Log
city.
scales are for quitters who can't find enough paper to make their point properly. Randall Monroe of XKCD. Splitting a single atom of uranium releases a minuscule amount of energy. Only about 200. God damn it! To break this shit.
Do you want to be to Pete or?
I can't get down there. Where the hell am I? Ah! Alright, what the hell was I saying? Splitting a single atom of uranium releases minuscule amounts of energy, only about 200 MeV or 0.00000000003 joules. Enough energy to make a single grain of sand wiggle. That still seems like a lot for an atom. However, when you consider that a single gram of uranium contains, what's that? 100,000, million, billion, trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, 2.56 sextillion atoms, in the amount of energy released piles up quick. That's a lot of atoms. The power of nuclear energy is unmatched. 1 more billion, yes. Okay, what else is here? There's no arrows. Go up the stairs or down here?
I think down here.
Okay. Knack area. Use no water. Okay. But I thought nuclear reactors used water as coolant. What's NAK? Well, most of them do. However, EBR-1 was special in that it was a breeder reactor. Breeder reactors. Okay, I think we're missing something. Okay. We might have to come back to this one because we're missing some info. Oh, it's tasty. Shit. Radioactive quackery.
Ooh.
Radioactive quackery is quackery that improperly promotes radioactivity as a therapy for illness. Unlike radiotherapy, which is scientifically sound use of radiation for the destruction of cells, usually cancer cells, quackery pseudoscientifically promotes involving radioactive substances as a method of healing for cells and tissues. It was most popular during the early 20th century after the discovery in 1896 of radioactive decay. The practice has widely declined, but is still actively practiced by some. To your right is a crock meant to irradiate water with radon, called a revigorator. A similar product called Radithor was a solution of radium salts, which was claimed by its developer, William J. A. Bailey, to have curative properties in 1920. Oh, in 1927, even Byers injured his arm by falling from a railway sleeping berth. For the persistent pain, a doctor suggested he take Radithor. Bailey, the guy who made the shit, offered a 1/6 kickback for every prescription. Okay. Byers began taking several doses of Radithor per day, believing it gave him a toned up feeling, but stopped in October 1930 after taking some 1,400 doses. When That effect faded. He lost weight and had headaches, and his teeth began to fall out. In 1931, the Federal Trade Commission asked him to testify about his experience, but he was too sick to travel. So the commission sent a lawyer to take his statement at his home. The lawyer reported that Byers' whole upper jaw, excepting the front two teeth, and most of his lower jaw had been removed, and that all of the remaining bone tissue of his body was disintegrating and holes were actively forming in his skull. He died on March 31st, 1932. He is buried in Allegheny Cemetery in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in a lead-lined coffin. Wow.
That's sad. Yeah, true.
While not technically defined as quackery, as it actually did its job just fine, to your left is an X-ray shoe fitting machine. In the 1950s, Eaton's Annex, a department store in downtown Toronto, Ontario, Canada, used these X-ray machines to check the fitting of shoes sold in their store. You looked down the tube and you saw your foot in the shoe, bones and foot and shoe outline. They banned them in 1957 due to the dangerous X-ray emissions. Okay. Well, that gives you sickness too. Goddamn. Ooh, easy. Okay, what's this? Nuclear energy to electrical energy. Nuclear reactors seem like magic, using the power of splitting atoms to generate massive amounts of electrical power, and in many ways it is. But like most forms of major power generation, all it really is a glorified pressure cooker that boils water into steam. While there are many types of nuclear reactors, the ones that typically bring electricity into your home simply use the heat generated from fission to heat water. Use that heated water to generate steam, and use that steam to spin a turbine, and then use that turbine to spin a generator. Click on the numbered circles to learn more about the different parts of a nuclear power plant. Thorium. What's this? A cloud. Let me move. Whoever made the horror exhibit had a great idea of separating wording. I swear.
Yeah.
Cloud chamber. A cloud chamber, also known as a Wilson chamber, is a particle detector used for visualizing the passage of ionizing radiation. In this model, the white trails of vapor are used to simulate particles emitting from the radioactive source at the center of the glass chamber. The cloud chamber consists of a sealed environment containing supersaturated vapor of water or alcohol. An energetic charged particle, for example, an alpha or beta particle, interacts with the gaseous mixture by knocking electrons off gas molecules via electrostatic forces during collisions, resulting in a trail of ionized gas particles. Okay. Charles Thompson Rees Wilson, 1869, died in 1959. A Scottish physicist is credited with inventing the cloud chamber, inspired by sightings of the Brocken specter. What the fuck? Okay. While working on the summit of Ben Nevis in 1894. He began to develop expansion chambers for studying cloud formation and optical phenomena in moist air. Very rapidly, he discovered that ions could act as centers for water droplet formation in such chambers. He pursued the application of this discovery and perfected the first cloud chamber in 1911. In particular, the discoveries of the positron in 1932 and the muon in 1936, both by Carl Anderson, awarded a Nobel Prize in Physics in 1936, used cloud chambers. The discovery of the kaon by George Rochester and Clifford Charles Butler in 1947 was made using a cloud chamber as the detector. Wilson received half the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1927 for his work on the cloud chamber, but he had no interest in particle physics and continued to work on weather experiments for the rest of his life. That's a mouthful. Okay. The Rutherford scatter The Rutherford scattering experiments were a landmark series of experiments by which scientists learned that every atom has a nucleus where all of the positive charge and most of its mass is concentrated, disproving the Thomson plum pudding model of the atom. They deduced this after measuring how an alpha particle beam is scattered when it strikes a thin metal foil. The experiments were performed between 1906 and 1913 by Hans Geiger and Ernest Marsden under the direction of Ernest Rutherford at the physical laboratories at the University of Manchester. This simplified version of the experiment shows alpha particles from a radioactive source bouncing off the gold foil and striking fluorescent paint on the inside of a ring. Most of the particles go right through the foil and strike the back of the cylinder, but every once in a while the particles would interact with the nucleus of a gold atom and bounce off. In the original experiment, they would have had sat in a very dark room and counted very few spots of light over the course of hours. Riveting. All right. Radiation. Does this one work?
Doesn't feel like.
Ooh.
Let's see here.
Is it busted?
SQ. Oh.
Oh, okay.
Try that one. Did that work?
Nope.
Okay, let's see. Tell raw FE.
Maybe it's just too fucking long like the rest of these.
I mean, you can
Maybe.
also just execute a command for everyone.
It's too long to execute in text.
Alright. I mean,
Okay,
this is like
fuck
an
it.
actual museum.
I think it's self-explanatory anyway. There's 5 types of radiation. I guess not really, but
I think it's actually too long for even a command prompt.
And probably that's why it doesn't work.
alpha, beta, gamma, X-rays, which are pretty much the same fucking thing, and neutrons going through paper, aluminum, lead, and concrete.
Looks very cool.
Or it might be because I set a character limit on it. I don't know.
Whoever
I'll have
made
to
this should
find
have
out
checked it.
later.
What's this one say? Damn it, Kiro. The lower controls. Okay, this is something else. I think we have to go upstairs first.
Alright.
EBR-1, the first nuclear power plant. Experimental Breeder Reactor 1. Experimental Breeder Reactor 1 was the world's first breeder reactor. At 1:50 p.m. on December 20th, 1951, became one of the world's first electricity generating nuclear power plants when it produced sufficient electricity to illuminate 4 200-watt light bulbs. EBR-1 subsequently generated sufficient electricity to power its building and continued to be used for experimental purposes until it was decommissioned in 1964. The purpose of EBR-1 was not to produce electricity, but instead to validate nuclear physics theory that suggested a breeder reactor should be possible. A breeder reactor is a reactor that produces more nuclear fuel than it burns in the process. It accomplishes this by bombarding a blanket of uranium-238 surrounding the core with neutrons produced by the fission of uranium-235. As neutrons are absorbed by the uranium-238, it becomes uranium-239, which rapidly decays into neptunium-239, which then decays further into plutonium-239. Plutonium-239 is fissile, meaning it can be used as nuclear fuel in a reactor or a bomb. Since plutonium is a chemically different element than uranium, it is fairly easy to separate them. Much easier than trying to separate uranium-235 from 238. Neat. The blanket. An example of the natural uranium bricks that comprised the breeding blanket of EBR-1. The bricks were stacked 12 per layer and 7 layers high, weighing 8,775 pounds or 300,980 kilograms, and forming a ring around the reactor core. They were air-cooled by the large hole running through them and contained another hole for safety control rods. Breeding provides method for increasing fuel supply by a factor of 30 to 40 the yield of fissionable material, or up to 140 times the heat energy from natural uranium. Breedable. Okay. The control center. Oh my god, this one's short. Here, technicians can monitor the processes of EBR-1 reactor, including power generation, radiation, coolant flow, etc. The big red button you see to the right was the reactor shutdown. It has been disabled for your safety. You guys try to click it anyway.
I mean, that's what I would do in real life as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they said it's been disabled, so I mean, yeah.
Okay, I guess we
True.
yeah. Okay, now to finish off this crap. Knack. Back to this one, I guess. But I thought nuclear reactors used water as coolant. What's NAK? Well, most of them do. However, EBR-1 was special in that it was a breeder reactor. Breeder reactors use the extreme amount of neutrons generated by the core of the reactor to make it even more fuel. Water does a great job of cooling, but it also does a great job of blocking neutrons. NAK, or NAC, is a mixture of sodium and potassium metal that makes an excellent coolant, as well as being fairly transparent to neutrons, allowing it to cool the reactor while also letting the neutrons it produces to bombard the jacket of uranium-238 surrounding the core and transforming it into plutonium-239. The big downside of using NAC is that it's extremely flammable and explosive in the presence of water. Any amount of water that might interact with the coolant system of this reactor would be catastrophic. On November 29, 1955, the reactor at EBR-1 suffered a partial meltdown during the coolant flow test. When researchers here removed the core to examine the damage done, the NAC still attached to the system kept igniting. The core would eventually be sent to Chicago to be disassembled under an inert atmosphere. Nice.
Interesting.
More trippy windows. The lower controls. Raising or lowering the cup-shaped reflector by means of the elevator you see through the window control the rate of the fission chain reaction. This reflector cup served basically as the reactor's on-off control. When the cup was raised to surround the core, the reactor heated up. When the reactor shut down, the reactor shut down when the cup was lowered away from the core. If you find it hard to see inside, that's because your view is obscured by several layers of lead-imbued glass to protect technicians from the intense radiation inside the reactor. Extremely bright lights inside the chamber were used to help mitigate this. This part of the reactor was actually in the basement and not at the level you currently stand, but contest restraints made a basement impossible. Hmm.
Don't you just love the feeling of radiation on
I love it.
Looks very
All
cool.
glory to Adam.
your skin? Yeah. Oh no.
Okay, where's the start button?
Yeah.
My flesh. The embrace of Adam.
Feel the glory of your
Be careful,
forefathers.
you might get a sunburn.
Get out. Oh, okay. Oh, this looks fun. I guess we'll do this first. Worldwide delivery in 30 minutes or less, or your next one is free.
Oh god.
Where the fuck does it start? This humorously painted 8-ton blast door protected the crew of Delta 01 LCC near Wall, South Dakota. For every 10 Minuteman nuclear missiles, known as a flight, there would be an underground launch control center, or LCC, that remotely commanded and controlled the missiles. Since there were 1,000 Minuteman missiles across the upper Great Plains from the early 1960s up until the mid 1990s, there would have been 100 launch control centers. The LCC at Delta 1 was 31 feet beneath the ground of the launch control facility. The LCC was beneath the LCC? Okay. Two missileers worked and lived on a 24-hour alert duty shifts within the LCC, where there was an 8-ton blast door that had to be opened from within before an oncoming missile combat crew could enter the LCC. Two persons crew that would spend most of their time monitoring the status of their 10 missiles. Among other work duties was an authenticating message traffic, remotely monitoring maintenance at the silos, and assisting with the dispatch of security police if any motion sensing alarms were tripped at the silos. When the missileers were not performing work duties, they would pass the time by reading, watching television, or studying for their master's degrees through a special Air Force educational program. There was also a bunk provided for one missileer to sleep while the other crew member kept an eye on the weapons system. Former missileer David Backers remembered that the missile duty was hours and hours of sheer boredom, punctuated by seconds of panic. Missileers waited and waited over several decades for a launch command they hoped would never arrive. If the command to launch was given, it would have come in the form of an emergency war order. Okay. Oh look, nukes. Implosion devices. An implosion-type bomb uses explosive lenses to compress a core of fissile material. This compression causes the core to go supercritical and spark a runaway fission event. This runaway reaction causes a massive amount of atoms to split and release enormous amounts of heat and radiation, causing an explosion. The gadget contained 6 kilograms of plutonium-239, but only 15% of it actually underwent fission before blowing itself apart. Okay. The gadget, the world's first nuclear bomb. Scientists who worked on the implosion design of this device were not entirely confident in its ability to detonate, possibly only blowing itself to pieces, known as a fizzle. So, on July 16, 1945, the Manhattan Project conducted the Trinity test. In the Jornada del Muerto desert, about 35 miles or 56 kilometers southeast of Socorro, New Mexico, on what was then the Alamogordo bombing and gunnery range. now known as White Sands Missile Range. Nicknamed the Gadget by its designers and constructors, the Trinity bomb released the explosive energy of 25 kilotons of TNT. This design would later be used in the Fat Man device. Fat Man detonated over the Japanese city of Nagasaki on the 9th of August 1945 with an explosive yield of 21 kilotons of TNT. An estimated 35,000 to 40,000 people were killed outright in the bombing. Okay.
Sad.
Gun-type devices. Gun-type devices attempt to assemble two pieces of subcritical fissile material into one supercritical mass as fast as possible. Once these pieces get close enough, they begin to undergo a runaway fission event, causing a nuclear explosion. The faster you can slam these pieces together, the more time fission can occur before the mass blows itself apart. The graphic above shows two hemispheres slamming together, but a more realistic design is firing a rod into a hollow cylinder of material, such as the design of the Little Boy device. Gun-type devices aren't typically used these days. Implosion devices typically use much less material, and decades of testing has improved the implosion type into the much preferred design. Little Boy. The second nuclear weapon ever used, but not the second designed. Little Boy was actually the replacement of Thin Man, a plutonium gun-type device that was abandoned by the Manhattan Project. Plutonium developed by the project was contaminated with plutonium-240, which underwent spontaneous fission, which made it a poor material for a device such as this. Uranium-235 became a much more promising material. Little Boy contained 64 kilograms or 141 pounds of highly enriched uranium, although less than a kilogram underwent nuclear fission. Its components were fabricated at 3 different plants so that no one would have a copy of the complete design. Unlike the implosion design, which required sophisticated coordination of shaped explosive charges, the gun-type design was considered almost certain to work, though it was never tested before its first use. At 8:15 in the morning on August 6, 1945, it detonated over Hiroshima, Japan, with the explosive power of 15 kilotons of TNT. An estimated 66,000 people died as a direct result, and over 69,000 were injured. That's a lot of people. Another long one. Fusion-type bombs. Fusion, thermonuclear, or hydrogen bombs are a second-generation nuclear weapon design that combines both fission and fusion reactions to vastly increase the destructive yield of atomic weapons. Typically, a thermonuclear bomb will contain an implosion-type device that acts as a primary for the secondary fusion device. The fission products of primary fission chain reaction heat the highly compressed and thus super dense thermonuclear fuel surrounding the spark plug of plutonium in the secondary to around 300 million Kelvin. That's hot. Igniting fusion reactions between fusion fuel nuclei. Early designs used gaseous forms of heavy hydrogen known as deuterium and tritium. This typically made these devices massive and unwieldy. The first test of a thermonuclear device was Ivy Mike, detonated on November 1st, 1952 by the United States on the island of Ujlab in Enichwak Atoll with a yield of 10.4 megatons of TNT. In modern weapons fueled by lithium deuteride, the fissioning plutonium spark also emits free neutrons that collide with lithium nuclei and supply the tritium component of the thermonuclear fuel. On March 1st, 1954, the Castle Bravo device first used this design and detonated with a 15 megaton yield. Due to unforeseen reactions with lithium-7 fuel, it detonated with 2.5 times the expected 6 megaton yield. This was the largest test ever conducted by the United States. The largest test ever was that of the Tsar Bomba by the Soviet Union on October 30th, 1961. It detonated with the explosive yield of 50 megatons of TNT, 3,500 times more powerful than the Little Boy bomb. It was designed for 100 megatons, but later lowered to allow the bomber that dropped it to escape its blast.
How
Big
nice of
bomb.
them.
Okay. Multiple independently targetable reentry vehicle. Multiple independently targetable reentry vehicle, or MIRV, is a multi-payload device designed to distribute multiple nuclear warheads around the globe in conjunction with the use of intercontinental ballistic missiles. The first true MIRV design was the Minuteman III, the first successfully tested in 1968 and introduced into actual use in 1970. The Minuteman III held three smaller W-62 warheads with a yield of about 170 kilotons of TNT each being able to target individual cities on the opposite side of the world and destroy them in less than 30 minutes from launch. Later, Peacekeeper missiles would carry up to 12 reentry vehicles, each containing a 300 kiloton warhead. Minuteman III missiles are still deployed in the United States, although their payload is limited to only one reentry vehicle under international treaty. If you have ever thought in the event of nuclear war that you might be safer living in the desolate inner plains of the USA, be sure to look up a map of Soviet missile targets. Most of the Minuteman missile silos happen to be fairly far from major cities, and make pretty good targets for those who desire to survive retaliation. So even if you live in bumfuck nowhere, you're still gonna get nuked. Death from above. Project Pluto. It's not a bird. It's not a plane. It's a nuclear-powered cruise missile. Project Pluto was the United States government program to develop a supersonic low-altitude missiles, or SLAM, with nuclear-powered ramjet engines. Two experimental engines were tested at the Nevada Test Site, NTS 401, also known as Jackass Flats, in 1961 and 1964, respectively. This would have many advantages over nuclear weapons delivery systems operating at Mach 3, or around 3,700 kilometers per hour, or 2,300 miles per hour, and flying as low as 150 meters, 500 feet. It would be invulnerable to interception by contemporary air defenses and carry more and larger nuclear warheads, up to 16, with the nuclear weapon yields of up to 10 megatons each, and deliver them with greater accuracy than was possible with intercontinental ballistic missiles at the time, and unlike them, could be recalled. The intense heat generated by its nuclear reactor would be used to rapidly expand cool air and propel the missile. Ramjet engines have no moving parts and rely on movement to force air into itself. Since this would require the engine to be in motion before it could actually start producing thrust, the missile would have had to have been launched with several detachable solid rocket boosters to achieve enough speed. The reactor on this missile would have been unshielded, spewing radioactive fallout everywhere it flew, around the globe, over its enemies and allies alike. The missile can be seen above your head, off to the left, over the earlier nuclear weapons exhibit. I guess you can walk up there too.
Yeah, you can.
Titan II ICBM. If you are familiar with the early history of designing ways to deliver atomic weapons to your enemy, in particular the extreme challenges provided by making sure your vehicle made it there without getting shot down by the other guy, you would realize just how game-changing ICBMs became. Instead of attempting convoluted cruise missiles that spew radiation across the globe, nuclear artillery shells, or even Jeep-mounted recoilless rifles that put their own crews in the blast radius, a missile that you could launch from your own turf, deliver a multi-megaton nuclear weapons to the other side of the planet, and neatly store it in hardened underground silos sounds like a better deal. Well, that's where intercontinental ballistic missiles come in. Part of the Titan rocket family, the Titan II ICBM was the first successor to the Titan I, with a double the payload. Unlike Titan 1, it used hydrazine-based hypergolic propellant, which was storable and reliably ignited. This reduced the time to launch and permitted it to be launched from its silo. Titan II carried the largest single warhead of any American ICBM. The W-53 had a yield of 9 megatons. This warhead was guided to its target using an inertial guidance unit. The 54 deployed Titan IIs formed the backbone of America's strategic deterrent force until the LGM-30 Minuteman ICBM was deployed en masse during the early to mid 1960s. Later, 12 Titan IIs were repurposed and flown in NASA's Gemini. That's not how you're supposed to pronounce it. I call it Gemini. Apparently, NASA calls it Gemini or Jiminy, which is wrong. But anyway, crewed space program until the mid 1960s. A model of the Titan II can be seen directly above you.
Crazy.
Fucking word salad. Too many words. Yeehaw, Kiro. Now you just need a cowboy hat. That was neat, but that was a lot of words. Oh shit, there's another one.
It is this one, last one.
God damn it.
Come on, Taco. You've done this. It's this far. You did it.
Dry cask storage is a method of storing high-level radioactive waste such as spent nuclear fuel that has already been cooled in a spent fuel pool for at least 1 year, and often as much as 10 years. Casks are typically steel cylinders that are either welded or bolted closed. The fuel rods inside are surrounded by inert gas. Ideally, the steel cylinder provides leak-resistant containment of the spent fuel. Each cylinder is surrounded by additional steel, concrete, or other material to provide radiation shielding to the workers and members of the public. And you two are dry humping it. I can't put the demon core back, even though I broke it.
It's fine, it's fine.
I never looked at the black line for uranium. Jesus Christ. Alright, I'm locking y'all in.
Oh, no, no, no.
No.
Oh, dog again.
Oh no. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Oh wait.
I gotta start my truck because it's 100 degrees in this fucking thing. I'll be right back.
Alright.
Oh, fuck.
I mean, we're only 2 hours in our showcase, so...
And is this the last exhibit?
I think so, yes. I hope there are not as many signs as there.
Well, we're gonna be thinking with portals.
Alright, yeah.
But I would like to make a complaint to this exhibit. These vending machines don't work.
Yeah. Oh, man. Man, whoever made that last exhibit must have been really excited about it, not realizing they would have to read out all that fucking information.
Yeah, really.